stronger as a unit. 2 heads are better than 1. I didn't want to be world champion anyway. All pathetic excuses made by chancers, if you ask me. But the truth of the matter is, for a fair few performers, tag teaming absolutely suits them more than working singles. Having a partner to share the workload and carry the burden can help disguise the weaknesses of some people, weaknesses that would be exposed were they not in a team. And boy, do you not want to find out the hard way, going out on your own and trying to achieve solo success only to fail in front of the world while, shock horror, your partner succeeds. Of course, sometimes both members of a team fail to make it on their own and soon find themselves running back into each other's arms like a couple of codependent smackheads in need of a fix. There's no shame in being a great tag team wrestler, but falling short of the same standards as a singles, well, apart from the shame of appearing on a list like this, I suppose, sometimes those are the breaks, and it happens. I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic.com, and these are 10 tag team wrestlers who failed as single stars. Join us. Number 10, Devon Dudley. A real slice of ECW ingenuity was pairing up Bubba Ray with Devon Dudley, the two standout Dudley boys who would rule not only the South-based Philly promotions tag scene, but also WWE's and TNA's in the years to come. While Bubba eventually proved that he could cut it alone as Bully Ray, Devon had no such luck. The first time the Table Breakers went their separate ways was in 2002, when they were split up during the first WWE draft. Devon found his way to SmackDown with a new gimmick of a crooked reverend and some new muscle in the form of a debuting Dave Deacon Batista, a future WrestleMania main eventer who back then was tasked with holding onto a donation box and trying not to fall over. The Reverend actually got a rare victory over Triple H and was all over television, but the fans didn't take to the act, and before long, he was thrown together with Ron Simmons, himself floundering without Bradshaw. Some 6 months or so after the separation, the Dudleys reunited at the 2002 Survivor Series, which was basically WWE's way of saying this isn't working as far as the singles careers of both Devon and Bubba were concerned. A later and longer singles run for Devon and TNA was similarly unremarkable outside of a television title run. Number 9, Charlie HAAS. Charlie HAAS was a very good wrestler. He could do the wrist locks, the suplexes, the arm drags, hell, he could do just about all of the moves and do them with accuracy and intensity. That will only get you so far in WWE though, and to disguise Charlie's shortcomings in the charisma and character departments, Creative gave him a series of partners. His first and most famous tag partner was Shelton Benjamin, they of Team Angle and then World's Greatest Tag Team fame. Another amateur standout, Benjamin's freaky athleticism complemented the Seton Hall University graduate's no-nonsense style perfectly. Once Benjamin got drafted to Raw, Charlie was put with the flamboyant Rico in your classic odd couple team, which also worked surprisingly well. Less noteworthy were his runs with veteran Hardcore Holly, the massive Viscera, and the surly Mike Knox, but it was obvious that our boy Charlie functioned better when he knew he had somebody else standing on the apron. As a singles, his only real work of note was the dreaded impressionist gimmick, which was totally played for laughs, and a couple of brief interludes where he didn't have a partner and sort of just drifted along aimlessly. The non-existent crowd reactions and empty list of singles accolades speak for themselves. Number 8, Stevie Ray. If there's one thing that's worse than getting upstaged by your tag team partner, it's getting upstaged by your tag team partner who also happens to be your younger brother. I mean, really, can you imagine the scene at the Harlem Heat House when Stevie Ray and Booker T were discussing work with the family? Oh yeah, you know, 5-time WCW champion, WCW superstar, king of the ring, but enough about me. What about you, Stevie? Well, I beat Buff Bagwell once, and I did it all by myself. Not to downplay Stevie Ray's accomplishments with his brother, of course, as the two made a great team and were justly inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2019. As a singles, however, Stevie Ray didn't do a whole lot of anything, pretty much just making up the numbers along with 30 or 40 other guys on Ted Turner's payroll at the time. He was good value as an occasional commentator, but in the ring, he just wasn't able to engage, despite a short reign as television champion. Sensing that he was better suited to the doubles division, WCW rebooted Harlem Heat with a ballooning Ahmed Big T Johnson filling in for Booker. And that is something I definitely can't dig. Sucker! Number 7, Jim Neidhart. Well, look who it is. It is who. That's who. Get it? Quite the winning gimmick that was given to Jim Neidhart to occupy his time while looking for another partner, eh? The barrel-chested Neidhart had a long and successful career in wrestling, but pretty much all of that success came when he was tagging with the extended Hart family, whether it was Bret in the Hart Foundation, Owen in the New Foundation, or with Davey Boy Smith. The Anvil was just about the perfect hot tag, exploding into the ring after his partner had taken a licking and unloading with high-impact power moves. He was also chock full of charisma and could carry the promo side for whatever unit he was associated with, because as gifted as the Hitman, the Rocket, and the British Bulldog were, they weren't exactly Steve Austin when it came to expressing themselves on the mic. Big Jim had the size and persona and the experience necessary to be a big deal on his own, but it never happened. Some wrestlers are just better off being tag guys, and Neidhart is certainly one of them. His 2 WWE Tag Team title reigns and Hall of Fame induction as a member of the Hart Foundation attest to that. Number 6, Chris Harris. Early TNA gets a lot of stick, and rightly so. I mean, this is the company that had a tag team dressed like actual penises called the Johnsons, and, well, how many examples do you need? I could go all day, baby. Yes, it was bad, with rotten gimmicks and a dependence on former WWE stars, and it's no real wonder that people were writing them off right from the get-go. But as dark as those early days could be, it still produced its fair share of goodness too, in large part to the homegrown stars that were given a platform to flourish early in their careers. AJ Styles, The Amazing Red, and Loki all wowed audience with their amazing acrobatics and passionate displays, but one of the cornerstones of the company was the always dependable America's Most Wanted. Cowboy James Storm and Wildcat Chris Harris were the team to beat until they split and Harris went off to WWE. Well, WWE CW, where he was renamed Braden Walker, shoved in a plain black singlet, and, well, you know the rest. The 7-time TNA Tag Team Champion became a walking punchline, and his career was essentially over after that. He showed brief glimpses of what he was capable of when feuding with Storm in TNA, but sadly, it wasn't enough to keep him off this list. Number 5, Billy Gunn. Unlike some of the folks on this countdown, Billy Gunn was given about 80 different chances to succeed or fail as a singles, and if not score an own goal, he at least managed to hit the crossbar every single time. And come on, why wouldn't you push Mr. The One Rockabilly ass? He was tall, he was in great shape, he was over, and he was the best pure athlete in the company at the time. Well, at least that's what Jim Ross would tell me every week on commentary. And let's not forget about that tight, smooth, supple backside. Anyway, Billy Gunn had it all and was a clear favourite of WWE creative and management. Whenever he was flying solo though, he never caught on as expected, even when being made King of the Ring or feuding with a top star like The Rock. Inevitably, WWE would give up and put him back in an old team or have him form a new one. And Gunn had plenty of partners to choose from: Bart Gunn, Road Dogg, Big Show, Chuck Palumbo, Hardcore Holly, a great bunch of lads, I'm sure you'll agree. They were always there to prop cute Kip up. Number 4, Road Dogg. Speaking of social media disasters, it's the Road Dogg. A veteran by the time he made it to WWE in the mid-90s, Brian James bounced around as a journeyman before finding success as the lackey/partner of Jeff Jarrett. After Double J's departure, Road Dogg did a whole lot of nothing before feuding and eventually teaming with Billy Gunn to form the New Age Outlaws, which essentially saved both men's stagnating careers. With their new rebellious attitude, catchphrases, and credibility thanks to their inclusion in the revamped DX, the Outlaws became multiple-time tag team champions and were one of the more featured acts on television during WWE's hottest ever period. Road Dogg had a couple of low-key singles runs and captured the Hardcore and Intercontinental titles, but those runs didn't leave much of an impression. Dogg was a tag guy and would invariably get lost in the shuffle without a regular tag partner. Even when emancipated from Big Billy, he would always find himself back in the tag scene, whether it was with X-Pac or Ron K. Quick Killings by his side. Unlike Gunn, the DOGG wasn't someone WWE were going to fall over themselves to push, but he was a solid hand who knew his role and understood tag team psychology about as well as anyone. Number 3, Chuck Palumbo. Number 3 is Chuck Palumbo as the curse of Billy Gunn continues. A red-hot prospect courtesy of WCW's Power Plant training facility, Palumbo formed a formidable tag team with Sean O'Haire in the dying days of the company, which carried over to WWE once Vince made his dream purchase and bought the competition. They didn't enjoy quite the same success in New York though, nothing to do with dodgy perception and backstage politics, I'm sure, but Chuck didn't mope around for too long, partnering up with Billy Gunn to great effect. Controversially, controversial at the time for its insinuation of a homosexual relationship, and later for the whole commitment ceremony angle, Billy and Chuck were great while they lasted, but were sadly relatively short-lived, scuppered when Gunn went down with an injury and Rico swanned off to Raw. Not that Palumbo stood around moping, however, as he quickly joined up with Nunzio and Johnny Stamboli to form the Full-Blooded Italians. Not quite as prolific as Palumbo and O'Hare or Billy and Chuck, it nonetheless meant our man was a regular on television, even mixing it up with the likes of Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker for a bit. Sadly, Chuck's singles exploits don't amount to much, besides a brief period where he came out on a motorcycle with Michelle McCool. Sounds strangely familiar, that. Number 2, Marty Jannetty. I bet you thought he'd be number 1, didn't you jabroni Mark? And why wouldn't you? Marty is so synonymous with being the supposed lesser half of a tag team, the guy who couldn't dream of replicating his double success as a singles performer, that others of his ilk are often referred to as the Marty Jannetty of the team. Which is somewhat unfair to the two-time rocker. Because yes, Shawn Michaels is a multiple-time WWE champion and Hall of Famer, and considered one of the absolute very best the business has ever seen, but has he ever actually killed a guy? Sadly, that's what Marty is known for these days, whether his rambling social media posts are in any way true or not. Mind you, in his day, Jannetty was a hell of a worker and more than held up his end of things, whether in the original Rockers with HBK or the new Rockers with Leaf, Al Snow, Cassidy. He also teamed up with the 1-2-3 Kid in a tag title winning team and briefly partnered with Razor Ramon. But by himself, Jannetty failed to grab people's attention in the way that his partners did, his lack of promo and character skills likely not helped by a tendency to screw up and get fired like it was going out of style. Number 1, Paul Roma. No, the top spot belongs to Paul Roma, a bloke I bet you haven't thought about since about 1995, if at all. Unless, of course, you've been sitting around trying to think of the worst ever Four Horsemen member, because it's him. The answer's Paul Roma, right? But while he was a thundering dud as a horseman and couldn't hope to keep up with the likes of Flair and Anderson, he was a pretty handy worker when he wanted to be, especially when placed in a tag team. Though he won tag gold on 4 occasions in mid-90s WCW, it's his work with WWE as a member of the Young Stallions with Jim Powers and Power and Glory with Hercules for which Roma is best remembered. The Stallions were a preliminary act, but had some cracking matches with the Brainbusters and the Hart Foundation, while Power and Glory possessed one of the best tag team finishes ever and could also be counted on for a decent outing. Though he flopped hard as a horseman, Roma did redeem himself somewhat in the Pretty Wonderful team he formed with Paul Orndorff. That's not me giving them muted praise, by the way, that was their actual tag team name. Pretty Wonderful. Another absolute banger of a name for a guy who was clearly so much better suited to tagging.